with us on the 2nd December. So you need to be on your best behaviour, please. Okay, welcome. Welcome also to the members of the public that have joined us this evening, either in person or watching on live stream. Together with members of our security team, with so many of us in the room, I politely ask you that we keep background noise to a minimum, including turning your mobile devices to silent. If any members of the public attending this meeting object to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we will ensure that you are not included in filming.
It's okay.
Before we start, please ensure that you have inserted your cards and your microphones and have pressed the Enter Meeting prompt on the screen. I will be using the Cue to Speak function. Therefore, please press your microphone if you wish to speak during the debate to place yourselves in the queue. Right, turning to the agenda. Item number 1. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. I suggest that on this occasion we vote on each one separately. May I please have a proposer for the approval of the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of July 2024? Can I have a proposer, please?
Councillor Smith.
Can you press the button before you do it? Right. Councillor Smith, propose. May I have a seconder? Press the button, please.
Regita.
Regita?
No. Councillor Major.
Councillor Major, is it? She's not seconded it. Right, okay. Councillor Hind?
Yes, I second the motion.
Right, okay.
Approve the minutes.
Yeah, please don't press your buttons too early. Wait until I actually say it, because it's confusing me. It comes up here and it completely confuses me. Thank you. Are there any comments on the 16th of July minutes before we move to the vote? Yeah, don't keep pressing it. Just press it once, please. Just press it once. Right, you're on. Right. Councillor Major.
Thank you very much indeed.
It's come up now.
That's wonderful. Please, may I draw your attention to point 365 on page 2 of the minutes. What I would like to request is a proposal for an amendment in respect of the 4th paragraph down, which starts with "at this point," when Rachel Hood is quoted. What I would like to propose it changed to is as follows. Councillor Rachel Hood raised a point of order stating that, in her opinion, it was ultra-virus to use the item list as, and I quote, "apologies for absence," in brackets, to receive announcements, in brackets, if any, brackets closed, from the officer advising the chair, in brackets, including apologies for absence, close brackets, to report the sanctions imposed by the West Suffolk Standards Committee, full stop. There was an exchange of views and Councillor Hood's point of order was not accepted.
Thank you. Who wishes to second the amendment? Councillor Pugh?
Councillor Pugh wishes to speak.
Does Councillor Pugh wish to speak on this item?
Not
on
really.
This amendment,
I thought just pressing the button was sufficient.
Okay. Does any other person wish to speak on this amendment? Councillor Waterman.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I'm very grateful to the leader of the Conservative group for the advance notice of this amendment. I do note the amendment, but I would comment that minutes are not supposed to be a verbatim record of the meeting, but rather a narrative. I question where will it end if we start making amendments to the minutes without good reason. I consider how it's currently minuted to be an accurate record. And I think the proposed amendment adds unnecessary detail. So I would vote, I would be against this amendment. Thank you, Chair.
So, does anyone else wish to speak?
Does anyone else wish to speak on this? No? Oh, Councillor Pugh?
I just want to make the comment that if you have minutes that are not verbatim, so they're just a general overview of what's gone on, you do also have the recording of the meeting, which would provide a verbatim record of what was said.
Councillor Waterman, do you wish to respond?
No. You now go to the proposer. That was Councillor Smith.
Oh, right. Councillor Smith, do you wish to reply? To the vote?
No, I think Councillorwoman's covered it adequately. Thank you.
Right, okay.
Close the vote.
Right, okay then. We go to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Of the amendment. Yeah, in favour of the amendment. Keep your hands up, please.
S- 16 in favour.
16 in favour.
All those against?
All those against? Hands up, please. Yeah.
One against.
That's 31 against.
The amendment's not carried.
The amendment's not carried. Thank you.
Go back to the original. Does anyone wish to speak on the original amendment?
Yeah. Does anyone wish to speak on the original proposal? No?
Go to the
Okay.
vote.
Right, we go to the vote. All those in favour, please show.
Carried, Chair.
Carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Item 2.
No, you've got the next one.
Oh, no, sorry. We got the 15th of October. May I now please have a proposal for the approval of the minutes of the extraordinary meeting held on the 15th of October 2024. Can I have a proposal, please? Councillor Hind? Can I have a seconder, please?
Richard Thing.
Councillor Waldron. Thank you. Are there any comments on the 15th of October meeting before we move to the vote? No? No one? Right, okay. We'll now take the vote. All those in favour, please show.
It's carried.
That's carried. Thank you very much. Right, item 2. This is Chair's announcements. Where's my? Oh, it's there, sorry. Right, and Chairs, you will have noted the list of engagements and the events held by not only himself, but as Vice Chair as well. I've undertaken since the last ordinary meeting on the 16th of July. I'd just like to say a few words on this. On page 30, there was a knife angel in Haverhill. There was a welcome, and also there was a departure. There was lovely speeches from the parents of the unfortunate Harvey who died. And also, as far as the other ones, remembrance services as well, it's just lovely moving ceremonies for the 5 days that I attended these ceremonies, really were. And also another thing I'd like to mention, you and your families are also most welcome to attend the Chair's Civic Carol service at the Cathedral on December the 2nd at 7 p.m, seated by 6:45 if you can. Please let Ruth know if you're going or not. Thank you very much. Item 3, apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies for absence from councillors Michael Anderson, Mick Bradshaw, Jan Jarvis, Aaron Lucarini, Sarah Mildmay White, Laura Jane Miller-Jones, Marion Rushbrook, Sarah Stamp, Joe Rayner, Nick Clark, Tracy Whitehand, Karen Richardson, Richard Rout, Karen Soons and Rachel Hood.
Thank you, Teresa. I will now move on to item 4. This is declarations of interest. I would like to remind members of their responsibility to declare any interest no later than the agenda item is reached. Are there any interests that wish to be declared now? No? Right, should move on to item 5. No, on this one is public participation. On this occasion, no members of the public have registered to speak. I shall therefore move on to the next item, which is item 6. This is a leader's statement. Councillor Walton. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'll just apologise in advance. I've had a bit of a cold, got a bit of a sore throat, so I'll try and speak clearly. Do accept my apologies in advance if I'm a bit croaky and I start coughing. Anyway, as is customary, I don't propose to go through what I'd already written in your pack. I will, though, quickly say something about the Corporate Peer Challenge report and wanted on record of how proud we, all of us, as councillors should be, both past and present councillors and staff, of such a glowing report. While I'm sure we know we cannot stand still, we do know as well in which direction we're heading, that we're equipped to get there, and we have a plan on how we're going to do it. I look forward to continuing the spirit of togetherness that we've had in supporting the production of the report and working with you all on continuing to deliver for our local communities and businesses. On housing, you'll have seen in my statement the improvements we're making to help people better afford homes, reduce the risk of being homeless, and helping those who find themselves sleeping rough. The housing, homeless reduction and rough sleeper strategy, not the snappiest title to be fair, but it does cover it, which we're talking about tonight, is part of the way we're tackling this complex issue, which involves many of our services, our partners, and of course our communities themselves. I'd like to say well done to all those involved in developing this strategy, especially as we have been ranked in the top 3% nationally for the speed with which we deliver the vital grants that we give to people that make such a difference to their lives. I'd also like to highlight the fact that last week staff were out through the night for the regular rough sleeper count, including providing support and advice where needed. Good news about Queensbury Lodge in Newmarket. I think we can all share in the welcome news that a scheme at last for Queensbury Lodge in Newmarket has been approved, and hope the owners will now start its restoration. It's sat ugly and festering at the entrance to Newmarket for far too long, as I'm sure we'll all agree. The restoration fits in with the delivery of West Suffolk Council's strategic priority for sustainable growth. It also follows years of work and dedication by councillors, as well as local ward members and officers. We now hope that work will start as soon as possible and this site restored and developed back to its former glory. I'd also like to touch upon some of the initiatives agreed or supported at Cabinet earlier this month. The first one is the Decarbonisation Fund, otherwise known as DIF, or in this case DIF 2. Community initiatives to cut carbon will benefit from a share of a fund of over £200,000 following a decision by Cabinet and the work of local ward councillors. Projects including solar panels, renewable energy battery storage, insulation and LED lighting in communities across West Suffolk may all receive funding from West Suffolk Council's Decarbonisation Initiative Fund, or DIF for short. The latest stage of which is the second round from the DIF of funding, which saw a welcome 29 expressions of interest, which someone's helpfully written here, EOI, expressions of interest. Too many TWAs, I think, 3-word acronyms, submitted to local ward councillors. Thank you to everyone who supported their local organisations and communities in this. Cabinet, you'll be pleased to know, Cabinet agreed that every deliverable project will receive a share of the available grant pot. A final decision on funding amounts will be made once costs of schemes and their viability have been confirmed and with the community groups involved. Electric vehicles. In a step towards reducing our carbon emissions and advancing sustainable transportation, we've just announced the launch of our new fleet of electric vans, alongside the installation of electric vehicle chargers. Again, someone's helpfully written EV after electric vehicle chargers, very necessary, at West Suffolk Operational Hub and at the Haverhill Depot. There's 6 vans altogether. The initiative is part of West Suffolk Council's broader commitment to reduce our emissions, adapt to climate change issues and increase environmental resilience through sustainable growth. The new fleet consists of 6 electric vans, I've already said that, sorry, that will support officer operations throughout the district, as well as 4 electric sweepers and some non-road mobile machinery. I think the electric sweepers are what my grandchildren call noo-noos. I'm not sure. Helping businesses recycle. Cabinet has supported proposals to enhance commercial waste recycling in West Suffolk, including increasing the range and volume of products that can be diverted from commercial and non-domestic organisations. This could include schools, care homes, hospitals and other government facilities, as well as new and existing businesses that we already work with. This is in response to the Environment Act of 2021, which legislates waste and recycling services must meet new nationwide simpler recycling requirements. The Act mandates that all businesses with 10 or more employees are to separate food waste and dry recyclables from general waste by March 2025. That's a year ahead of the households that are required to do so, do the same from March 2026, which you'll recall we debated at a previous council meeting. Cabinet backed the plans to invest £245,000 to purchase additional bin lorries, or freighters as they're known, to help deliver the new service. The investment is required to ensure the council can continue to offer customers a waste collection service that is compliant with the legislation. I would encourage businesses, if they have not already, to look at the requirements of the new legislation. The investment means we can support businesses to recycle more, improve the environment and tackle climate change, and we can be a valuable partner to businesses in achieving that. 2 more things. The first is a record for the arts, and I'm delighted to share with you all that our October box office figures at the Apex were the best on record ever. In October, we sold around 13,100 tickets, which were worth over £330,000. This makes October this year the best month on record for ticket sales and box office income since the venue opened. It also brings us above pre-pandemic sales, as our previous best month on record was in March 2019, in that distant country before the pandemic, we all remember fondly, when we sold only 12,692 tickets. I'm told if we continue on the same trajectory, we will exceed 110 tickets sold in 22/3. That's great news, showing how well the venue is supported by our residents, our visitors, and its value to our evening economy for local businesses. Finally, as someone said, I want to touch on the local plan, which is being inspected by planning inspectors here at West Suffolk House. This is the first local plan for West Suffolk Council, and although I did mention it in my statement, I do want tonight to recognise the tremendous work that has gone into this and continues to do so by councillors, both past and present, as well as officers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Before I start, any leaders, any questions for the leader? I'd just remind councillors that this is part A, by the way, of the leader's statement. Also, 5 minutes are allowed for each questions to be asked and answered. and the leader may invite responses from the portfolio holders. Okay, we have three. Councillor Mason first.
Thank you, Chair. First off, thanks to Councillor Kelly for his support recently. I really do appreciate when we can work collaboratively to solve problems for residents. So thank you. Chair, the changes to winter fuel payments has left many of our most vulnerable residents fearful of turning on their heating this winter. As the temperatures drop, the consequences of this government policy are becoming starkly clear. A life-threatening cold snap is upon us, and countless people, especially the elderly and people with comorbidities, are at serious risk. Charities have been vocal about the devastating impact of these cuts. Legal challenges have been launched by Union Unite and a Scottish charity. In fact, even Scottish Labour have today announced that they would bring the winter fuel payment back. Suffolk County Council has already passed a motion urging the government to reconsider its decision. Cross-party national condemnation is evident. I've refrained from tabling a motion, opting instead to call for direct action at cabinet level. But I'm deeply concerned that this administration appears unwilling to acknowledge and confront the human cost of these changes. In West Suffolk alone, up to 34,000 pensioners may have lost their winter fuel allowance. Many of these individuals are at risk of hardship. I support the notion of income maximisation, but it's worrying how many people previously guaranteed the winter fuel payment are now falling through the cracks. It's not just those on benefits who are struggling. Many pensioners with incomes just above pension credit threshold are ineligible for vital support like warm home discount, cold weather payments, or council tax discounts. These people on extremely low incomes or who have very small personal pensions and do not qualify for pension credit are completely overlooked by the government and, believe it or not, find themselves worse off than those who do qualify for pension credit. What has been the response from West Suffolk? I think a lacklustre social media campaign focused almost exclusively on pension credit. Just 2 posts since November the 4th. A website that wasn't updated for months after the government's announcement. An uninspiring toolkit for local organisation that omits fantastic local charities like Reach Community Projects, which supports residents across Haverhill and as far as Newmarket. Chair, what is needed? This council needs a properly maintained website that is checked and updated, as opposed to one that until just recently stated all pensioners would automatically get the winter fuel payment. A social media programme that actively informs residents not just about pension credit, but also schemes that targets just about managing residents, such as attendance allowance, carers allowance, council tax reduction and social tariffs. Press releases that are accurate and clear and corrected when wrong, unlike the recent misleading claim that £2,800 is available per councillor to be spent on cost of living support. We need a commitment to do more and be better as a council. The government's decision has put lives at risk, and there will be residents in our communities that will feel abandoned by Westminster, but don't let them feel abandoned by the council. If we cannot offer direct support, leaving that to partner agencies, then we must at least ensure that clear, accessible information is provided and that we are proactive wherever and whenever we can. Anything less is unacceptable. So, does the leader acknowledge more can and should be done by this council to raise awareness to those so badly affected by the changes?
Councillor Waldsman, you wish to reply?
Thanks very much, Councillor Mason. I note that Suffolk County Council passed a motion calling on the government to do something, and I noticed that was roundly condemned as politicking in the local press. You did raise similar questions at Cabinet, and my colleague, Councillor Higgins, gave you a very comprehensive response. In answer to your question, we do a lot. There's always more that can be done, but this council does as much as we can do to support our residents, and our focus isn't on politicking, it's on making sure our residents are supported, and I'm confident that that is something this council does very effectively. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hind?
Thank you. I'm trying to get used to this. It stays green until you move a button on your desk. So thank you for that. I just wanted to pick up something on the leader's statement and just that would be memories are golden. This is a dementia hub that was facing closure because their existing accommodation was no longer available. And it's fair to say that our property team had been working on it for a very long time and we came up with the offer of Abbeycroft, and at one stage I didn't think that that would happen because it wasn't quite the same. But I'm very pleased that it did and that charity is continuing. And I visited them when I happened to be in Haverhill on another matter and went along to have a look. And they are really well settled. And actually, I think in a way, it's actually a better proposition in many respects, being closer to the town. They're having their meals now brought in by a delivery service, and they're really, really happy where they are. And I think it's a success story. And what I just wanted to say, will the leader join me in thanking our property team, because they really did work hard on finding something else. And it's just pleasing when we can do something that has a very positive response, a very positive result, I should say, for everyone. And I just want to say, will you join me in thanking the property team for their part in this, as well, of course, as for Abbeycroft, who had the accommodation available. Thank you.
Councillor Walton?
Many thanks for your question, Councillor Hind. I certainly would like to join you in congratulating both our property team and Abbeycroft on this excellent piece of work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wakeland?
So do I just... Yes, I do. First of all, I suppose I better declare an interest in that I'm a governor of West Suffolk College. But I just wanted to talk about Provincial House. This was a project set up by the previous administration. It's been pushed through by our officers and by the current administration. I just want to say what a brilliant initiative it is, because it's an investment in adult skills, and that's something that quite often is neglected. Lifelong learning and lifelong increasing of skills are not only beneficial for the individuals concerned, many of whom I would add have been let down in the past by mainstream education, for the want of a better word. But it's something that this council, I think, can be proud of, that we are investing in our people, and we're also, with the physical improvements, Provincial House, investing in our properties. So all in all, I'm really pleased, and I hope that this close cooperation between the college and the council will continue in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Boltzmann?
Not sure there was a question, but I'll attempt to answer it anyway. It was implied. Yes, I mean, it's a brilliant initiative, and it shows this council's commitment to all the towns in West Suffolk. And I was lucky to be given a personal tour of Provincial House before it was opened officially. And it is a very impressive renovation that we've done to it, and a very welcome development that West Suffolk College have moved into the town centre, bringing more life, more footfall, and of course, importantly, adult education right into the heart of the community. Thank you.
I've got 2, 4, 5 more. I think that will be it, because we've got 30 minutes for the whole lot, and we're heading towards that now. Councillor Major.
Thank you very much indeed. I wonder whether we could have maybe a little bit of clarification around the article that was in the Bury Free Press this week, where Councillor Higgins was quoted as saying that we had now been given a £2,800 community budget, which was to be used for an implication of cost of living crisis. I have sought clarification from the officers as to whether or not we had been given a new budget. And I understand that there is some confusion as to exactly what we can use this money for. And I just wonder, has the council changed what the community budget was for, or because we haven't actually had anything officially from yourselves?
Councillor Waterman.
Thanks very much, Chair. Always willing to clarify any confusion that Councillor Major has. I think, though, the best person to answer this question will be Councillor Higgins. So, if I may, I'll ask her to answer.
Councillor Higgins.
Yes, am I? Yes, I am. I did pick up the comment in Councillor Mason as well, but by the time I'd sort of processed all the things he was saying, I think I was too late to click the button. What I actually, with the best in the world, Jo asked us for what are the list of things that we do, and we went on for ages. He was given a very long list. So I do actually forgive him for sort of trying to shorten what I'd said, but in the process, I think he'd actually missed out the context. So I'm going to read out to you exactly what I said about the 2,800. It was each of our councillors can and do directly back the cost of living support that benefits residents in their ward. As part of the 3 tiers of Thriving Communities funding, our councillors each have £2,800 to spend supporting projects and initiatives for the benefits of residents in their wards, including the cost of living support, and this is available throughout the year. So with that in mind, because I did know that Councillor Major had already flagged that up, I have actually asked for some of our projects that I could illustrate that for you. So, for example, one of our ward councillors, I'm not mentioning you by name, but you know who you are, did actually sort of back the family park cooking from Abbeycroft Leisure Centre, which was to take people who are struggling during the holidays. Half had paid for them at other times, and I think they actually backed an additional project. There was support for vulnerable families at the Scout Camp costs in Exning. There was the Fish Friday Warm Space project at Westow Council. That's subsidising a fish and chip supper for people in the community. A community larder at Chedborough, and a healthy cooking budget course provided by Reach. So I think, those are just a few of the examples that have been backing our residents that are struggling with the cost of living as examples of what's been done. Thank you.
Councillor Neil.
Thank you, Chair. It's a grass cutting season's finished now, and I just want to say that, we invested in our grounds maintenance, and it was noticeable, that investment, that did make a difference. Well, it certainly did in Mildenhall. If you lot didn't get it, well, I feel sorry for you, but the grass cutting for us was pretty good. And I applaud the fact that formulated was a cross-party group by councillorship, so that took the politics out of the situation, and they worked very hard to come up with some recommendations going forward. And one thing that I would like to ask and establish tonight is where we have wildflower gardens as such, I wondered if the working group have found a better way of doing that. Because at the moment, what goes down is grass seed with a bit of flowering weed in amongst it, and there's no way you can pass that off as floral. So if we're going to do wildflower sections next year, I would like it to be floral. And so the question, there has to be a question, can the leader confirm that, please?
Councillor Waterman.
I think I'm confirming that, yes, the group will look into improving the way that wildflower meadows are managed. And obviously, we all welcome wildflower meadows. I think everyone realises that it's not just a question of throwing seed down. It's a much more complicated process than that. And I thank Councillor Neil for raising that important issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Pugh.
Thank you, Chair. I want to return to the affordable, available and decent homes topic, Councillor Waterman, and I want to encourage all members here to do what I have done this last year. Having been out walking in my patch, a neighbour brought to my attention a house that looked perfectly well maintained, lawns mowed, no signs of damage or anything, and she said to me, "Do you know, it's not been lived in for over 10 years. And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Oh, well, the woman died and her daughter lives somewhere else, but she maintains this house." So to everybody walking past, it looks like a perfectly ordinary house that somebody is living in, with curtains, no sign of distress or disarray. And yet I came back and had a word with the teams here and said, "Can you find out if this person's paying council tax? Do you know who this person is?" And between us, Anglia Revenue and then the housing team, we got in touch with the person who owns the house, and that house has now been put on the market. So it is coming back into use, and we can all do a small step like that. It doesn't always have to be down to officers and great big council policies. It's about us keeping our eyes open when we're out and about in our patch and just asking the question, is it, why? What is the story? Why is this not used? And I would also like to highlight, slightly differently, but to do with costs of living and support for the elderly, the very valuable work that the Coffee Caravan charity does. That probably isn't something that residents of Haverhill, Brandon or Newmarket know about, because it doesn't really focus on the towns, but in the villages, in the rural communities, it is an absolute astonishing mobile home which goes around, and it's a Citizens Advice Bureau on wheels, and they are fantastic. So if you have an isolated community, talk to the Coffee Caravan and see if they could make a stop in your parish and bring some information, some advice, some support. If we have an opportunity to support them, Councillor Waterman, I would like to think the council would do so, because they are doing a really good job.
Thank you. Councillor Waterman.
Thank you, Sarah. I think what you've described is exemplary behaviour for this district councillors, and exactly the kind of granular work we should be doing in our local communities. So I salute you for that. On the Coffee Caravan, can I ask Councillor Higgins to comment on that, please?
Councillor Higgins.
Got it. The toolkit that was mentioned, I know that one of our councillors doesn't like it, but what it does is it gives links to community groups like the Coffee Caravan, like all the other groups that work with our communities, so that they can use these links to find out the correct information. There is also, please, you mentioned Citizens Advice. This council have actually given a grant this year of £245,000 to secure Citizens Advice in all of our towns, so that they can actually give the most up-to-date and most accurate. They are the experts on these things. And I know Coffee Caravan also double checks some of the work that they do with that organisation. Can I also say that our cost of living dedicated officer has also in the last 2 weeks been visiting all the warm spaces that we funded, and she has been talking individually to people in the communities. She's also been taking the printed copies of the leaflets out for them, so that they don't have to rely on the internet to find that information. And I know that she's been communicating, if people need more resources, she will help them. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Waterman, do you want to?
No.
No?
Councillor London.
Sorry, Councillor London. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I am asking this question to honour a promise made to the residents of Queensview Exning that I would bring this matter to full council if I couldn't get it sorted elsewhere. I've had significant difficulties, too long to detail here, in getting movement from grounds maintenance to tidy Exning up, sometimes because of items mysteriously dropping out of the work schedule and sometimes because our grounds maintenance policies do not allow us to resolve obvious problems like giant trees and unsuitable locations. I am not going to accuse council employees of hiding behind policy. It is right for them to follow our policies, just as it is right for us to examine our policies and alter them when they're not fit for purpose. In the Grounds Maintenance Review Cross-Party Advisory Group, there was a proposal for a member-led review of our grounds maintenance policies, especially our arboricultural policy. Will this happen? And if it will, what is the timeline?
Councillor Waterman.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks, John. Can I ask Councillor Shipp to answer this because he has more detailed knowledge of this matter than I do?
Councillor Shipp.
Certainly can. Thanks, Chair. Just before I do, I noted Councillor Glossop's disappointment that she didn't get any discounted fish and chips at West Stow. It was actually West Row, just to point that out, and I just want to make that clear for the record. Councillor London, John, thanks for that. Yes, unfortunately the last meeting of the cross-party grounds maintenance working team didn't meet. We will reschedule another meeting and we will add the items that you're mentioning onto the agenda and schedule one as soon as possible. I'll also just add that we'll add to that the wildflower gardens because I know we'd all love to see Councillor Neil gambling through his wildflower meadow in the future. We'll add them to the agenda, John, and I'll seek to get a meeting as soon as we can possibly do so and take on board your comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Bearing in mind we've only got 2 minutes left, but anyway, are there any questions for the leader on Part B? Councillor Glossop.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions and you'll probably not be able to answer the first one. We'll probably have to have a written answer. I'd like to have an update, please, on where we are with the refurbishment of the leisure centre. I know we did the questionnaire, but have we started any work yet, please? Shall I go on to my next thing and then you answer afterwards? Shall I do that? Okay. I would like to raise my thoughts on the vacant retail units at the old post office site in the town centre. These have been vacant now for 2 years, with the council having to pay business rates for empty units. Although there has been some interest, which does not transpire into tenants, I am aware of interests over the time by national chains. However, given the announcement at the budget for rate increases and NHI payments, albeit mainly to affect large businesses, but will include small businesses from 2026, this could have an adverse effect on our ability to get tenants. I would like to suggest that we give our market traders or start-up businesses the opportunity to use these units as pop-ups, especially through the months to spring, as at least this would make the view on St Andrew Street less unattractive than it is now. We could consider an indoor market and show our support for the market traders. If that is not possible, can we please put some murals up on the windows, as we really are not being very good neighbours to the Arc, which has worked extremely hard to fill their empty units, and at the same time they engage with the community and put on events which are being very well received. Thank you.
Councillor Waterman.
Thanks very much, Chair. Thanks very much, Councillor Glossop. On the first point, a motion will be coming to Council on the 17th of December, which I think will answer all the questions on that. On the post office in Bury Town Centre, I share your frustration. I know the team are working very hard to resolve the issue and get tenants in. We were very disappointed that Amici pulled out at the last minute. So all I can do is reassure you that the team is working as hard as they can to fill those units. And actually, I don't know if they've thought of the idea of putting murals on windows, but I saw some in a district I visited last week, which had been put up by the council, were very effective. So if they haven't thought of it, we can use this as a nudge to think of it. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Chair.
It's well over the 30 minutes, I'm afraid. So we've got to move on. Right, item 7, referrals to report of recommendations from Cabinet. 7A, referrals from Cabinet on 17th of September 2024. And item 7A1, Treasury Management Report for June the 2024. I call upon Councillor Hine to introduce this item and move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just asking members tonight to approve the Treasury Management Report as contained in report number FRS WS 23004. I'm sure you've all read the notes that are before you, but I'll just pick a couple of things out to share with you. The Council held 43.5 million of investments as of 30th of June 2024. Interest receivable in the first 3 months of the financial year amounted to 557,276 against a budget for the period of 270,000. External borrowing as of 30th of June 2024 was 9,375,000, a reduction of 125,000 from the 1st of April, which relates to the repayment plan for the recent Public Works Loan Board 10 million 40-year loan, with the Council's level of internal borrowing being 48,243,309 as of 30th of June 2024. The overall borrowing of both external and internal is expected to increase over the full financial year. So that just picked a couple of things out of there, but these have all been through Treasury Management and PASC, and I thank those committees for their excellent work on these matters. And I just ask Council to approve the recommendation in the report, please. Thank you.
Who wishes to second the motion? Councillor Stennett, thank you.
I want to speak as well, please.
Oh, right, okay.
I just want to make clear, because I am chairman of the Financial Resilience and Subcommittee, it's actually report number FRS-WS/24/004. It is put down here as 23, and that should be changed to 24. It's a typo, but I want to make everybody clear of that. Thank you.
Okay. Who wishes to speak on this item? No one? Right. Okay, thank you. As there's no other members have indicated who wish to speak, I shall go back to Councillor Hind to close the debate.
I don't think I've got anything to add to that, but thank you to Councillor Stennett for spotting the typing error. Yes, nothing else to say, just let's go to the vote, please.
Thank you. I will now take the vote. All those in favour?
Any against, Chair?
Any against? No, that's carried.
Any abstentions?
Oh, any abstentions, sorry. Is there any abstentions? No? Okay, thank you. Item 7A2, West Suffolk Housing, Homelessness Reduction and Rough Sleeping Strategy. I call upon Councillor O'Driscoll to introduce this item and move the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, councillors. I'm delighted to present the new Housing, Homelessness Reduction and Rough Sleeping Strategy. And I know it's a mouthful, but it's mandatory, so we can't change the title. Without doubt, it is likely to be one of the most important papers I will present during the lifetime of this administration. And the question you may ask is, why is it so important? This is the culmination of some very detailed work by dedicated council officers. It has included extensive consultation with councillors, developers, a whole range of partners and residents, along with the development of a very strong evidence base. And it confirms the challenge that we face in West Suffolk. I've mentioned a number of times that we have a housing crisis nationally, and I've mentioned that we have a housing crisis in West Suffolk. Examples of the challenges that we have include 2,500 of our residents on the housing register and 1,000 of those in high or very high need. Many of those individuals have little prospect of being rehoused in the short term. We've also seen increasing numbers presenting as homeless. We have 100 households in temporary accommodation. We have the highest rents in Suffolk, and we're also higher than the national average. And if that wasn't challenging enough, that's coupled with some of with earnings that are lower than the national average. Many residents are living in overcrowded homes, and many residents are living in cold and damp conditions, often in homes in poor repair. We have insufficient and inadequate accommodation for single people, also for older people and for those with disabilities. I could go on, these are just some examples. So I think nobody should be in any doubt that as a community we have a major challenge around housing. Behind all of these examples are real life stories. Recently, some of these were shared publicly by the council, highlighting the very real challenges our residents face and the exemplary work of our officers in supporting them. A secure and decent home is a basic human need. Without it, residents face disadvantage in many areas of their lives and often will experience both adverse health and well-being as a consequence. But the strategy is not just about understanding the challenges. It's also about identifying and delivering solutions. The outcome that I'm asking Council to approve is a strategy that strengthens and aligns the Council approach to housing through three key priorities, which are number one, preventing homelessness and rough sleeping and responding to diverse needs. Number two, better quality homes that are safe and secure and matched to need. And thirdly, new homes that are affordable, sustainable and accessible. We want to help more people better afford a place to live, improve living conditions and reduce homelessness. This is important because a secure and affordable place to live provides a foundation for our ability to take part in society, to work, to learn, to be healthy and to develop a sense of community. We will build on the work already underway, and I have to say there was some exemplary work undertaken by the previous administration, and I commend them for that, but sadly the challenges have grown. I've mentioned the strong evidence base, which helps us in our decision making, and we've developed a series of new actions and set these out in the strategy. These deal with both the immediate challenges, but they also aim to deal with the longer term needs as well, and they require different solutions in different places. And these actions are backed by funding. Earlier this year, the Council approved over £1 million in funding to deliver against our housing priority. With this strategy, we are going further, and in setting out clear ambitions, are seeking a further £612,000. And in a minute, I'll say a little bit more about that. Budget provision funded from the strategic priority and mid-term financial strategy reserve that will explore options for growth and increasing housing supply. The second tranche of funding is specifically aimed at resourcing initiatives and in particular technical requirements to meet our housing and employment needs in a number of key areas, including along the A11, A14 and A1307 corridors. And I've been asked by a couple of members, helpfully, to clarify the difference between the initial grant of the initial commitment of 500,000 set out in paragraph 2.5 in the report, and the second sum of money of a similar amount. It's probably unfortunate that it's a similar amount. A little difference might have helped spell out some of the differences. So the sum of money referred to in paragraph 2.5 very much related to work that was done through the emerging local plan, where specific activity for Brandon and the Mildenhall area were identified, and from there work has been done to establish a Brandon Commission to bring together a number of voices about to recognise the challenges that Brandon faces and potential solutions for that area, both in terms of housing and in terms of economic development. The second sum, mentioned in paragraph 2.6, is very much supporting this strategy, the housing strategy, and it's more about looking forward, and includes a wider number of areas. It will also include those areas mentioned, and there may well be activities that fall out of the Brandon Commission and the work in Mildenhall. But in addition to that, we know that we have challenges in other areas too, and there are opportunities to develop housing, and there are opportunities for economic development. But to make the most of that, we need to invest in technical skills and other activities. That's all I'm going to say on that for the time being, but I recognise there may be further questions. As we move forward with the strategy, we will ensure that progress is reported through quarterly key performance indicators, reported to the Performance and Audit Scrutiny Committee and to Cabinet. We'll also report our progress through communications to stakeholders and partner organisations, as well as through the media and our own social media challenges. In September, Cabinet recommended the strategy to Council for approval. The new combined housing strategy is part of the Council's policy framework and therefore is required to be approved by Council. However, developing a homeless reduction and rough sleeping strategy, i.e. part of this overall strategy, was an executive function, and therefore this element of the new strategy was adopted by Cabinet in September in accordance with legislation as an interim step and to meet a statutory deadline. In summing up, I have to say there are no simple solutions, but this strategy sets out a framework that commits the Council, working alongside partners, to do all that it can to deliver the best possible housing outcomes for our residents. I sincerely hope that as many members of the Council as possible, regardless of party affiliation, can get behind it and do right by our residents and push on with this strategy. I recommend the strategy to you for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Driscoll. Do we have a seconder for this motion, please? Councillor Savage. Thank you. We have 2, 4, 5 people who wish to speak on this item. The first one is Councillor Chester.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start by thanking the Cabinet member for housing for his time today. He allayed some of my fears. I told him part of what I'm going to say tonight, and he gave his best stab at answering the questions. Further, he's done that tonight based on some of the questions I posed him earlier. So I thank Richard for that. So, members, I'll cut straight to the chase here. My preferred option for this agenda item, particularly the recommendation 2 at the bottom of page 43, is one of deferment for reasons that I will come to shortly. But make no mistake that if deferment is refused, subject to any outcomes from the debate to follow, I will still support this important and worthwhile proposal. My problems stem from the second bullet point, item 2.6 on page 51. That's page 51, item 2.6, second bullet point, and I query the sum of £500,000. I'm not querying the administration's achievements in alleviating rough sleeping and the quest for more social housing, which I totally support. Quite simply, this £500 Brandon Commission does not belong under this heading of housing, homelessness reduction and rough sleeping strategy. This is a flagship policy to highlight the needs of Brandon, the A11 corridor, and should be treated as such under a separate agenda item. As former chair of this council, I had been invited and welcomed to several events in Brandon and witnessed firsthand the justifiably proud achievements of members here today and Brandon Town Council, along with highlighting the constraints of the special protection area, with Victor jokingly saying he was going to open a restaurant with stone curlew on the menu. I assume that was a joke, Victor. Also, the boundaries with Norfolk and Thetford Forest create barriers to growth. Now, I have a question here. What is £500,000 spent on this commission going to achieve that we don't already know? Perhaps that question could be answered. I would also like to thank Indy. I'm not going to attempt the surname Indy in case I get it wrong, and I have no fear to offend. So, Indy, I'd like to thank you for your email dated November the 11th, giving forward notice of the media being aware of the Brandon Commission. There have been previous policy announcements made by media prior to the Conservative group being informed. So I thank you for that email. However, there's a got you there, because probably not of your own creation, because in that email it contains key details on setting up the proposed commission, none appear in the agenda papers. So in conclusion, I find that information on the proposed commission scant and lacking in detail, and I repeat, deferring this item may be a better option. But however, Cabinet Member for Housing may be able to give us more detail on that. But on a final note, I merely seek the best outcomes for Brandon. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chester. We've still got 5 people wish to speak on this item. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Driscoll and the housing team for all the work that they've done here. It's a very good strategy, but there's a but which I've got concerns around, and that's on page 74, which is houses, and it's the paragraph houses in multiple occupation. I think personally the strategy is quite weak in this area, and it's a continuation of the previous council's strategy, which was weak in this area also. I'd just like to read some parts of that paragraph. Poorly run HMOs can also have a much wider impact in relation to the community impact of HMOs, such as crime, antisocial behaviour, and tackling vulnerability and safeguarding matters, which all impact on quality of living in neighbourhoods. Across West Suffolk, there are 115 known non-licensable HMOs, so that they're the ones that have got 4 people or less. They do not require a licence. There's also 111 licensed HMOs which have 5 or more people in there that require licences. But the troubling aspect, and the part of the report that really does trouble me, is that this part here that says the BRE report estimates that there are significantly more hidden HMOs, approximately 1,967 operating within West Suffolk, which have never been inspected. Of concern, it is estimated 493 of those require an HMO licence. So that's 493 properties in West Suffolk require a licence, that they suspect require a licence that haven't got one. They're non-compliant and potentially unsafe. Now, we've had issues with HMOs in Haverhill, and I understand there's been other issues in other towns in West Suffolk. Some of them have been quite horrendous, really. The problem with Haverhill is that we've got several old council estates. The houses are fairly cheap. People have snapped them up to maximise profit and divide them up into 3 or 4 rooms. And some of the people that have gone into those houses have got are vulnerable, got drug and alcohol problems. And it looks like, these are not getting inspected. The ones that we know about are getting inspected 3 to 5 years. But we've got, potentially 4,000 to 8,000 people living in these that are never getting looked at. And that's not to say that all HMOs are bad things. Some of them are very well run. But what really does concern me, and has concerned me in the past, is the ones that aren't run very well. And, I won't go into the gory details, but I'm sure other councillors have had issues around HMOs. And it deeply worries me that they're not getting inspected. And we've got a huge amount of people that could be being preyed on. I've seen stuff around where there's been fights broken out in these houses where, you know, who puts the money in the electric meter or buys the card, who buys the toilet roll, you know, stuff like that, you know, needles getting thrown out the windows, gardens becoming hugely overgrown, etc. And a lot of these are terraced houses, and the impact on their neighbours, some of whom are vulnerable themselves, yeah, and they get told that they've got to create a diary of what time this happened, what happened, to try and get anything done. And the impact on their lives is sometimes horrendous. So I think it's a fantastic report, and I actually commend all the work that the team and Richard has done on this. But I think, you know, the bit around HMOs is weak, and it was weak in the last strategy, in the last administration. I said so at the time, and I'm, you know, drawing the line in the sand here and saying I'm not happy personally with it, and I think we need to do more. And I understand there's a bit more of a budget going into it, but it's nowhere near enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hind.
Thank you. As the local ward member for Acorn House, I'm very concerned by the decision taken by Riverside to close their 2 supported housing schemes for young families in Haverhill and Bury St Edmunds as a result of Suffolk County Council's cut to housing-related support. As the consequence is that 24 vulnerable families will become homeless, is there anything this council can do to minimise the distress and disruption to the families concerned?
Councillor Marks.
Thank you. I assume I just speak. This is quite new for me. I declare an interest here, Chair, because I am a landlord, as most of you know, and I believe very strongly that people pay too much for their rents, and I charge 2/3 of the economic rent. The challenges for private landlords is becoming very, very difficult, and many of my colleagues are now selling up. Now, the people who are in rented properties can't afford to buy properties. So effectively, your comment, you've written a little paragraph here about somebody who's being made homeless because the landlord was selling up. We do have some problems as private landlords, and I do believe that you don't really work well enough with us as officers and as councillors to help resolve some of these problems. I would commend and thank the environmental officers here at West Suffolk who work very, very closely with us, and they do work very well, giving us good guidance and good advice. But people like Havebury who have social houses, if their tenants receive housing benefit, they get that money direct. As private landlords, we used to get that direct. We don't anymore, which means that if you then get a tenant who's lost their job or is a drug addict, then the money that they receive in their pocket does not necessarily go to the landlord. And the landlord then does no longer wish to let that property to those people. So they will become homeless, or indeed the landlord will sell up. I think there really are a number of problems here. And finally, also, of course, there is the issue of USEFI, the United States Air Base, and unfortunately, they push the rents up tremendously. And I'm always being asked by the agents. I have an agent now. We have so many rules and regulations now that, quite frankly, it would be very difficult for a private landlord to manage properties without an agent giving guidance on a lot of those issues. But they constantly want to push the rents up because they've always got somebody from the United States Air Base who's looking to rent, which is a great shame because it means our own residents often are compromised and having to pay too much money. So, there are a number of problems, and I would ask, please, Councillor O'Driscoll, I have written to you, as you know, and I would ask that you work much closer with private landlords because selling their houses is not going to help your problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hoftensberger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Housing, homelessness and rough sleeping has long been something that I've taken a keen interest in. In fact, when I was studying my A-levels, I undertook some work experience just across the way from this council chamber with the then St Edmundsbury Housing Department, where I was able to write a survival guide for the homeless. The strategy that we have before us this evening is an important and indeed essential strategy, which is why it's important that we get them right. Access to good, decent, affordable homes is key to people's health and well-being, and a good strategy which is delivered can produce good outcomes for the people that it's aimed at. There have been some reservations and questions raised about some lack of detail in some areas of the report and strategy, and I believe that Councillor O'Driscoll has largely addressed those this evening. There are still some areas I feel do need to be explored. However, I do accept this is a working document and a strategy that will evolve and flex as policies and actions come forward and are developed further, which is why, to me, the most important part of this document is the priorities and actions from page 83 onwards. It is here where the work happens, and it's also here where we need to keep a watchful eye to monitor performance and outcomes through the tools at our disposal, such as full council, cabinet, over and scrutiny, performance and audits. And it's our commitment to ensure that this is done. But the true test of the strategy will be in the outcomes it delivers for the residents of West Suffolk, and it's our duty to ensure that these are delivered correctly. Mr. Chairman, I will support this important strategy with some reservations on the detail within the paper, which I hope will be ironed out, and we will closely monitor its progress. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Glossop.
Thank you, Chairman. I support homelessness reduction and rough sleeping strategy. I think it's terribly important, but I actually think this paper is terribly muddled. Yes, 2.6, Brandon, that is a separate piece of work. That is local, that is economic development. As we know, the next local plan will already have to be started to be worked on. And this is part of that piece of work. And to say, are we saying that Brandon has got more homelessness and rough sleeping, so that's why it's been included in this paper? We've also had the email from Indy explaining that we would be going out to get a chairman for that piece of work. So thank you, Indy. But I believe these two pieces of work are quite separate, and it's paining me because I think they are both important, but I do not see how this Brandon piece of work can be put in this paper, because the Brandon issue is the stone curlew. Now, I have been sitting in on the inspectors looking at the local plan now, and all the time Natural England comes up about the stone curlew, and this is a national issue, and until that is sorted out nationally, I cannot see how us spending money on a chairman for a commission, which the last administration worked so hard on this, and I do understand the problem at Brandon, but it should not be part of this paper unless you can say to me that Brandon has a terrible problem with homelessness and rough sleeping, and it's the first I've heard of that, so thank you.
As there's no more, Councillor O'Driscoll, do you wish to respond to all the questions?
Yes, Chair, I'm more than happy to give it a go. There is quite a few there, but there's a little bit of overlap with one or two, so I'll do it as quickly as I can, and I'll try and be as brief as I can, which might be famous last words. So, first of all, picking up Councillor Chester's and Councillor Glossop's questions and comments, I think in many ways Councillor Glossop answered the question that I was going to answer for Councillor Chester. They are two quite separate funds here. 2.5 refers to a piece of work which is about the economic development, including housing, in Brandon, but also in the Mildenhall and Lakenheath areas, and that very much related to work done in the emerging local plan. Some of that work does include the establishment of a Brandon Commission. There has been some expenditure, and I think it might be helpful for councillors to be given some further written information about what expenditure there's been and what anticipated expenditure there will be on that particular project approved in the budget. The second £500,000, and I wish we'd made a slightly different figure, 495,000 maybe, and in a way, I wish we hadn't mentioned Brandon, but it is important. There may be work that comes out of the Commission that will need to be picked up, and Brandon should not be excluded from that work. But the second tranche of money is very much about supporting the housing strategy, and it will include looking at other areas It will include work that comes out of those commissions, but it is quite separate. And I apologise if the paperwork could have made it a bit clearer. But if there are further questions after this meeting, I'm more than happy to pick those up. So I'm going to leave it there for the moment, but if there are further questions, we can come back to that outside of the council meeting. Councillor Brown has rightly raised the issue of HMOs, and he's done that consistently, and I've been hearing it ever since I've been in this role, and I've had a lot of communication with Councillor Brown, and I have to say I've shared many of the concerns he's raised. We have some very, very good HMOs, and we have some pretty poor ones, just like we do with other landlords as well. We did recognise that there is a challenge, that we needed to strengthen enforcement, and that was addressed in the budget back in February. We put an extra £177,000 into enforcement, and that was very much targeted on the private rented sector and looking at issues around decent homes. It may not be enough, and I accept what Councillor Brown is saying. We have to review how that goes. It's a relatively new initiative. I have seen some improvement. I've seen more inspections. Yes, we have regular inspections, but we also have responsive inspections as well. So if there are councillors who are concerned about HMOs in their area, then please do bring them to the attention of our officers so that we can deal with those. But my view is at the end of the year, we should look at how that work has progressed. And if there is a gap in the service, we need to then address that at a future point. So I hope that Councillor Brown can support the work we're doing. The BRE work that he mentioned is some of the work that this council has done as part of Safe Suffolk Renters. So the BRE work has been helpful in giving us some clear data on how big that challenge is. And it's partly on that we base the decision to invest further in this activity. So moving on, Acorn House and Riverside. I mean, this is a very sad situation, and I don't think any of us around this chamber can feel very comfortable about 24 young families facing potential homelessness. This is a situation that I think once the decision had been made by the council, there were some risks, and this council, along with Suffolk County Council, have tried to mitigate those risks. We've had discussions about this in the past. We did manage to retain 4 out of the 5 services in West Suffolk that are supported by, have been supported by the housing related support budget. But the 5th one, Riverside, which has 2 units, one in Haverhill, one in Bury, we haven't been able to retain. They've decided for economic reasons that they want to pull their services together into one unit in Ipswich. So we're now left with the question of what can we do with the situation. So what I can assure you of is that we are working extremely closely with all of those residents. We hope to get them all permanently housed by the time that the Riverside units are due to close. And we are confident that we can do that. And in doing that, I know that council staff have already been in touch, and we will do that with great sensitivity because it's clearly a very difficult time for them. We're also not happy to lose important services in the area, so we are talking to the current providers about future possible uses of the buildings that they have, so that we can get some social benefit from those units. And those discussions are ongoing. So I'll leave it there on Riverside, but I'm happy to have further discussions with anyone who wants to talk about that outside of the meeting. And then private landlords, Councillor Marks has given us very helpful insight, as she has done on other occasions. There are some things that the council can do. We do have a good working relationship with quite a number of private landlords, and in fact we have a private landlords forum where I believe we have somewhere in the region of 200 members. And we do work closely with them, and private landlords are very much part of our thinking as well in terms of solutions. both with short-term and longer-term accommodation. There are assurances that can be given to private landlords around areas like rent guarantees. And we also have now the Renters Reform Act coming forward, which will clarify some of the contentious areas that have been around for some time. So there are things happening. We are working with landlords. Safe Suffolk renters are too. They've held a number of landlord forums, and I think that work will continue. But I thank Councillor Marks for raising that issue. And finally, I thank Councillor Hoffensberger for her support with this item and recognising some of it is a work in progress. So thank you.
Thank you. I will now take the vote. All those in favour, please show.
Any against?
Is there any? Is there any against? Is there any abstentions?
Carried, Chair.
Right, that's carried. Thank you. The next item is item 7B, referrals for Cabinet, the 5th of November 2024. Item 7B1, implementing simpler recycling services for commercial waste. I call upon Councillor Taylor to introduce this item and move the motion. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. This report sets out the plan to develop our commercial waste collection service to meet the government's simpler recycling requirements as set out in the Environmental Act of 2021. West Suffolk Council has well-established commercial waste services, and these proposals seek to protect and grow these services and its income by providing compliant waste services to our local businesses. Key objectives for these proposals are: introduce a separate food waste collection service to all relevant commercial and non-household customers in West Suffolk from April 2025. Extend the current recycling service to all customers who currently have no recycling service, approximately 1,130 of them. Introduce a separate collection of glass and cartons where applicable. And fourth, collaborate with customers to ensure the transition to the new service. The council currently generates an annual income of approximately £3 million for trade waste services from around 2,400 customers. This is an important income stream for the council and significantly contributes to the fixed cost of delivering its waste services. However, this revenue is at risk from competitors if we do not provide compliant food waste and recycling services to our customers. The council operates in a competitive market for waste services, competing with local and national waste collection operators. The key benefits of the extra services will be supporting our customers to be compliant, an additional £395,000 income to offset costs, and of course, helping to increase our recycling levels. I therefore propose this report.
Good. Who wishes to second this motion? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Who wishes to speak on this item? As no other members have indicated wish to speak, I shall go back to Councillor Taylor to close the debate.
I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will now take the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Item 8. Item 8, to incorporate peer challenge action plan. I call upon Councillor Waterman, Leader of the Council, to introduce this item and move the motion.
Many thanks, Chair, and apologies once again, it's me. So I'm very pleased that as leaders from across this council, we can collectively put this very positive report before you and the action plans which we're already working on. I'd like to thank Councillor Hoffensberger, who has agreed to second the paper, and the work you and others have done on this. The Local Government Association Corporate Peer Challenge is a way to have a critical friend to look at what we're doing and a chance for us to ask them to help us with the challenges we face and have ourselves identified. It was important that the document and evidence we sent to the peer review team was agreed by leaders from across the council, and I would like to thank them all for putting their names to it. This was an incredibly positive review and the first for this council, and it looked back over the last 5 to 10 years. Indeed, after each day, the lead chief executive, the peer chief executive, and the lead peer councillor gave feedback to myself and the chief executive, and it was so overwhelmingly positive that, being British, not used to accepting praise, I was waiting for the but there never was one. During the review, we encouraged free and open discussions with anyone the review team wanted to speak with. And indeed, the panel had 61 separate meetings, and there were 110 individual people with whom they spoke. And it really did allow them to lift the bonnet and inspect the engine and make sure it was running properly. You'll have seen a summary of the report in my leader's statement, so I won't repeat all of that summary here. The review doesn't have a rating system, but in the feedback after the review, it was clear to me, drawing on my professional background as a teacher, that if it had been an Ofsted inspection in my days as a teacher, we would have been ranked as outstanding. Happily, those single word rankings have been abolished, but if you get the best one, you're not going to complain. The review team said we needed to do more. In fact, the review team said we were so good that we needed to do more as a council to promote ourselves in local government circles so that the rest of the sector could learn from what we do so well. I'm sure you'll remember the new priorities we agreed in this room by the whole of council last December. And I'm pleased to say the panel agreed the priorities, and I use their own words, are clear, based on local evidence, political priorities and challenges. And they were created through engagement with councillors and were understood by staff as well as welcomed by partners, local organisations and residents. The challenge we set the peer challenge team was to help us move forward in the continued understanding, delivery and promotion of those very strategic priorities. And the recommendations they've made are welcome and helpful in achieving that. In putting forward the recommendations, they also highlight that we are already on the road to further improvement. In delivering an action plan at this meeting to explain how we're going to meet these recommendations, and in some case already doing so, we've beaten the LGA's deadline to publish the action plan by a month. I sincerely hope you will all welcome and agree the action plan tonight as a reflection of all our good work, so that we're ready for the Peer Challenge team to return in May to help us review progress against that action plan. You will see we've taken trouble to ensure as many councillors are engaged as possible in the actions. Finally, this report is a positive reflection of the work we've done and continue to do on the ground for our local residents and businesses. It holds us up as an example to the rest of the local government sector and says we not only have the right foundations, but also the current setup and culture to deliver on our new strategic priorities. This is a reflection of the good work you all do as councillors, and also an equally good reflection on the excellent work our staff do. we have been given pointers on how to further improve on the benefits we're delivering, which I think we all will welcome. We're now getting on at pace with delivering on those priorities and the recommendations made. In conclusion, I do urge all members to support this motion and, without being too congratulatory about it, to give themselves a little pat on the back. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I call upon Councillor Hoffenberger, leader of the Conservative Group, to second the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to second this paper, especially as this was work that was not only led by West Suffolk leaders, but is based on the collective work with all those in this room and those that have gone before. I too would like to thank Councillor Griffiths, the former leader of West Suffolk Council, and his cabinet, and their dedication and work which helped inform such a positive report. Equally, thank you to the administration for the work that was undertaken to make sure this was not just a paper exercise, but was open to all and included the opportunity for the peer review team to speak to who they wanted. I certainly valued that opportunity. As a peer myself, I am an advocate for the peer process, and this only works well and proves beneficial when councils are open and transparent in their approach. This is a positive review over the last 5 to 10 years, which highlights the strong foundations and collective decisions that have enabled West Suffolk Council to support its communities, deliver high-quality services, and encourage economic growth since its creation in 2019. I am confident that all 64 councillors across this political chamber will continue to make sure that the authority delivers for local communities and that the actions in the plan we are all looking at tonight are based on the recommendations are acted upon. We are also able to challenge the peer review team to look at areas we as a council are pushing forward as priorities, and I believe their input has not only recognised the good work that has gone on, but helped us strengthen this even further. Our job as councillors is to do the best for our communities and businesses. And not only does the report say we have been doing that, but helps us further deliver and build on our priorities that we agreed in December. I support the recommendation, welcome the positive report, and look forward to seeing the progress for when the team return in May. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got one person that wishes to speak on this item, and that's Councillor Glossop.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd like to know, as we've got such a glowing report, how many councillors and how many officers in this council have got the qualifications to sit and do one of these peer reviews? I find that very interesting because I know I questioned Becky and Becky has got the qualification, but I just wondered how many of us have got the qualification to sit, because I challenged how they had, I was asking what qualifications they've got to have to be able to come and question our ability, because I was sort of a bit bristly about that.
Councillor Waterman.
Thanks, Councillor Glossop. Like Councillor Hoffensberger, I am a qualified peer. I've just, in fact, did a peer review last week. I think, in answer to your question, what gives us the qualification to do that is our experience as councillors. And certainly, I'm sure Becky will agree with me, you go into a peer review humbly, expecting to see good things, but also hoping that you can see things that need perhaps improvement or working on, and hoping that you can steer people. It's not so much a question of giving advice, it's more steering them to where they can get help with developing the things they need. So I found it, from both sides, an incredibly positive experience. And, you know, again, reflecting on my experience as a teacher, a lot more positive than the experience of Ofsted coming in and basically, you know, sitting there and scowling at you for a couple of hours and all that. So, I mean, and anyone who wants to sign up as a peer, the LGA are very keen to sign up both councillors and also officers. And I thoroughly recommend anyone who's interested to do it. It is hard work. And you do feel a terrible weight of responsibility, I think, when you're in someone else's council. But it does help you to have a wider view of our sector and all the good things we do. Thank you.
Right, okay, on that conciliatory note, I'll close the item. Do you wish to respond, Councillor?
Just responded, you now take the vote.
Oh, sorry, I will now take the vote. All those in favour, please show. Any against? No. Any abstentions? No, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Item 9. Worlington Neighbourhood Plan, referendum and decision to make as a West Suffolk Development Plan document. I call upon Councillor Thorndyke to introduce this item and move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Gives me great pleasure to introduce the Worlington Neighbourhood Plan. The plan has been prepared by Worlington Working Group, led by Worlington Parish Council. A neighbourhood plan should be read alongside the documents which make up the District Council's development plan and are used to decide whether to approve planning applications. They are written by the local community, the people who know and love their area. For a neighbourhood plan to become part of the development plan, it must follow a statutory process involving public consultation at each formal stage, including designation of the plan's area, pre-submission, submission, examination, and finally by referendum. The process is now complete, and the last step in Worlington Neighbourhood Plan's journey will be taken now when West Suffolk Council adopts it as part of the planning policy used to determine planning applications in the area. The independent examiner summarises the plan, stating that the plan is distinctive in addressing a set of specific issues that have been identified and refined by the wider community to safeguard the character and setting of the neighbourhood area. The Worlington Parish Council, a working group, should be congratulated on the successful production of this neighbourhood plan and outcome of the referendum. I therefore move the recommendations as per pages 177, 178 of your council papers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who wishes to second the motion? Councillor Taylor?
I do, and I would just like to say, as the ward member, I'm really pleased to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I notice we've got someone who wishes, a councillor who wishes to speak on this item, and that's Councillor Wakelam.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a vivid memory of when I was on Development Control Committee of a planning application coming before us, which we rejected despite the fact that it was we either rejected or we rejected it, despite the fact that it was in accordance with the neighbourhood plan. And at the time, I and other members of the committee thought this was a shocking decision to make. And I'd like some assurance that the Worlington neighbourhood plan will actually be respected going forward, and those sort of decisions will not be made again. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? No? Okay, Councillor Thorndyke, do you wish to respond to the question?
I can do, Chair. Basically, that was the first ever neighbourhood plan we had, and the planning application that came up against it was already in the mill when the neighbourhood plan was approved. And yes, we did go against that neighbourhood plan. I think that's probably the only one that we have gone against in the history. Everything else has been sorted out beforehand where there is a conflict. And I think of one in particular where we're likely to have a little bit of conflict at the moment. But it's been sorted out beforehand and we haven't had the same problem again. That particular parish is now on its second neighbourhood plan. Thank you.
Thank you. I will now take the vote. All those in favour, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Item 10. extension of the appointment of independent persons, Localism Act 2011. I call upon Councillor Kelly to introduce this item and move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Fortunately, I think this one is relatively very straightforward, as I think most of us are aware of exactly what the issues are, and they are really dead simple. The Localism Act requires us to appoint at least one independent person as part of our arrangements for dealing with complaints about potential breaches of the Member Code of Conduct. Some will recall that in October 2022, we joined an arrangement led by Suffolk County Council in which a pool of 5 independent persons was appointed to assist us, the county, Baber and Mid-Suffolk and Ipswich Borough for a period of 2 years with an option to extend the arrangement for a further 2 years. Unfortunately, only 2 members of the current pool have expressed willingness to continue as independent persons, with those leaving citing personal reasons for discontinuing. It should also be noted that it's been felt that the annual payment was insufficient, and records show that it has been set at a figure of £300 per annum for a period of 10 years. Working with a pool of independent persons allows our monitoring officer to ensure independence is maintained by appointing them to complaints on a rotational basis. I therefore propose we continue to work with the other authorities to have in place a pool of independent persons to call from, and I propose the motion set out in pages 185 and 186 of the report to confirm the continued appointment of those individuals listed on Appendix 1, to increase the annual retainer from £300 to £500, such sums to be shared between the participating councils. And this says, instruct the monitoring officer, as if I dare, to support the recruitment campaign led by the monitoring officer for Suffolk County Council for 3 vacant posts to maintain the independence of those individuals and to ensure there is sufficient cover in place. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Who wishes to second the motion? Councillor Martin, I've noticed. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Right. I've just got one councillor that wishes to speak on this item. That's Councillor Ball.
Actually, I was going to second. I don't want to.
Oh, sorry.
I wasn't quick enough.
Right. Thank you very much.
Does anyone wish to speak?
Right. Does anyone else wish to speak on this at all? Right. Okay. I go to the vote. All those in favour, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Right. Thank you. Item 11. Item 11, motion on notice, debate, not hate. Under section 9 of the council procedure rules, Councillor Rucanik has given notice of a motion as contained in your agenda packs. I call upon Councillor Rucanik to introduce this item and move the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few words to move the motion. Being an elected member of West Suffolk Council is a privilege and a responsibility, but sadly it comes with an increase in incidents of abuse and intimidation directed towards us and officers. The impact of such incidents can have a significant effect on health and the well-being of our councillors, officers and their families, and we should take steps to ensure they feel safe and secure within their own communities. The LGA's campaign, Debate, Not Hate, deals with these concerns and has recently undertaken a survey which has revealed that more than 1/5 of councillors have received a death threat or a threat of violence. Due to their role, and almost a quarter of all councillors have suffered abuse serious enough to report to the police. We have witnessed at first hand attempts to intimidate us in our own chamber. causing a meeting to be suspended until the matter was dealt with. This has caused us to give thought to how to stay safe while working within our community. It is important that this council commits to challenging the normalisation of such incidents and upholds exemplary standards of public and political debate in all it does. It is for this reason that I am proposing the recommendation set out within the motion on notice, and that's on page 193 of the agenda. And Chairman, I will be voting in favour of the motion.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I call upon Councillor Becky Hoffensberger, the leader of the Conservative group, to second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm more than happy to second this important motion on debate, not hate. We all have our own reasons why we become councillors, but I would suggest that the main root of our decision to stand is to make a difference to people's lives and represent their views. We should all be advocates for democracy and good engagement. Debating and disagreeing with one another is a healthy part of democracy, but abuse and intimidation crosses the line into dangerous territory. According to the LGA's most recent survey, 7 out of 10 councillors reported experience of abuse or intimidation. Councillors are receiving abuse and intimidation on a daily basis purely for carrying out their role as a councillor in their communities. There should be no barriers to becoming a councillor. Everyone should feel safe and proud to stand and represent your community. However, the increasing levels of abuse and intimidation aimed at councillors is preventing members from doing this, and what's more, deterring individuals from standing for election and undermining local democracy. I scrolled too quickly. I have had fellow councillors who have resigned or not sought re-selection as a councillor due to wanting to protect themselves and their family from the levels of abuse they received. I personally have questioned myself on more than one occasion why I should continue in my role as a councillor. These are questions that we should not have to need to ask ourselves. As councillors, we can set an example of what good democracy looks like, how we engage, debate and discuss issues whilst exercising our democratic rights. We can disagree and behave in a respectful way. Our behaviour should reflect what we expect from others we engage with. Still scrolling. Mr. Chairman, I am pleased to second the motion. As Councillor Lukanik said, being a councillor is indeed a privilege, as is exercising your democratic right. But it must be done in a respectful way, which allows for healthy debate and engagement. No one should feel intimidated, scared and unsafe to representing their communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who wishes to speak on this item? May I remind councillors that, as is set out in the agenda, only 5 other members may speak on the motion for a maximum of 3 minutes. I may, however, exercise my discretion to extend the time allowed and the number of speakers to ensure the motion has been suitably debated.
We don't have anyone.
Okay. Thank you very much. Right, I'll take a vote on this. All those in favour, please show. Is there any against? Any abstentions? Right, that's carried. Thank you very much. Item 12. Any other urgent business? We have no items of other urgent business to consider on this occasion. So I'll move to item 13. I now announce that business is concluded for this evening. I invite members to leave the chamber via the east side. May I please ask members of the public to leave the building immediately via